That's wild.
So much better. When I retired, and they would come and stand over my shoulder and be like, don't get it. And check it. And
It's not heavy.
All right.
You know,
Go get that.
yeah, right?
frustrating.
I had no here with the scores, but making me crazy. I've been married for 20 years.
It's not really new revelation, it's just new.
Is it fun?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Maybe we'll have to walk.
I recorded all this.
All right, good evening. It's after 7 o'clock. It's October 7th. This is our regularly scheduled council meeting. It's running a little behind due to a committee meeting previously. Tonight's meeting is in council chambers and is live streamed on YouTube. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be Monday, October 21st, 2024. Ms. Hamilton, will you please call the roll of those that are here?
Mr. Abernathy.
Here.
Mr. Gaffey.
Here.
Mr. Huzay. Ms. Knappich.
Here.
Mr. Malta.
Here.
Mr. Myers.
Here.
Ms. Warden. Here.
Mr. Huzay had contacted me previously and that he was going to be unable to attend this evening. We have a quorum, and the agenda will remain as presented. And with that, I'll ask you to stand with council members and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do I have an approval of the previous meeting minutes?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Abernathy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gaffey. All those in favor of approving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Minutes are approved. Communications from the mayor. Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. As promised, my comments tonight are going to be very brief because I spent most of the time since our last meeting eating my way through Eastern Europe and have come back amazingly not any heavier than I left, which was doing what I ate was quite an accomplishment. Great trip, great to be back. Again, I think by about 10 days in, I was getting almost homesick because I was tired, ready to see Worcester, and it was great to be back. Sorry I missed on Worcester Fest, and so we finally got some rain. But again, good to be back. Not much in the way of updates. I saw Joel's memo from Friday. That's pretty comprehensive. I think just a couple things that I've picked up and really some emails that I think you left off is we did get word from Norfolk Southern that they are going to be doing some improvements. And I know that I've gotten complaints about some of the intersections they're talking about, and I assume you have as council members too, so I thought you'd be pleased to hear this as well as I. So I guess they're gonna start with Palmer Street and Mill Avenue intersection, then move to the East Bowman Artiflex crossing, then finally the East Liberty Pittsburgh Avenue. So I don't have a time frame for those when that's gonna happen, but it is in the works, and again, I took that as good news, and I think you should as well. The other thing, and this was just in a conversation today with Joel, is that, you know, in the spring, this pursuant to council action, we did a bunch of economic development grants throughout the city, and a lot of those projects are underway, and I'll just give it over to Joel. Or
Let Bill, the debt tax grants that were awarded and progressing along.
Yeah, so the Ohio Light Opera has finished with all of their improvements that they were going to do. If you've driven by the fairgrounds, they have completed their fence, phase 3 of their total fence repair. There's 4 phases. We funded them for phase 3. The Lyric had the installation for the HVAC unit, so 3 of the 4 have completed their work. We're waiting on them to submit invoices and verification. And then we have word back from the Wayne Center for the Arts. They're waiting on funding to come through from the state, and they will begin in January. So 3 of the 4 are pretty much wrapped up, and the 4th one is, we have a target date on when they're gonna start, so.
Excellent.
Then looking to tonight's agenda, we have just 5 new items. Items 1, 2, 4, and 5 are budgeted. Item 3 is not. This is on first reading and would require 3 readings, but we would ask that you so consider suspending the rules and trying to enact that tonight. Mr. Abernathy, I'm sure will give a further explanation on that. And also item 5. That's one we would also consider that council, ask the council consider enacting tonight, because there's a large lead time involved with those items, and it'd be best to get those in process now. And again, Mr. Wall will talk more on that when that comes forward. Otherwise, I have nothing further to report, and again, glad to be back. And we'll leave it at that.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. We have no petitions this evening, and we have, the only people that signed up to communicate is items that will be on our miscellaneous portion of the meeting, which will be a little later. So at this point, we'll move into committee reports, which at this point, we've only had one recently, and that was with Ms. Knappich.
Yes, thank you. Before today's meeting, we had a Laws and Ordinances Committee meeting regarding what to do in this district with about marijuana dispensaries, and Mr. Jose was able to weigh in by email to me today. We had a pretty good discussion. I think we're moving along to a consensus. We have until the end of the year to draft legislation, because our current moratorium goes until the end of December. And I think at that point, we've got to, well, prior to that point, we've got to make a decision, but we've got to pass legislation by then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have no public hearings, so we'll move right into unfinished business. But before that, Mr. Gaffney has again alerted me that he will be recusing himself from the discussion and voting on this particular topic. And with that, Ms. Hamilton, if you'll please read resolution 2024-64, please.
Resolution number 2024-64, a resolution accepting the recommendations of the Wooster Tax Incentive Review Council with respect to existing enterprise zone agreements, community reinvestment area agreements, and tax increment financing projects.
Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
Okay, we're at 3rd reading. So gone over it 2 separate times. Anybody have any additional questions, comments? All right, then I'm going to move to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Abernathy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call, well, no, I guess we don't need to. Yes, please call the, yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey. Ms. Knappich.
Yes.
Mr. Malta.
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
You'll get it, Amy, you'll get it.
He's upset about the audience. I am waiting.
I finished. It
Okay.
was a mess, but I finished.
My apologies.
It passed.
All right, very good. All right, we'll move on to new business. Ms. Hamilton, could read resolution 2024-79 for us, please.
Resolution number 2024-79, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to purchase flock cameras, including installation and yearly subscription for use by the Police Department and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Gaffey, the floor is yours.
All right, yeah, this is a not to exceed item on the budget, and this is for flock license plate reader cameras. There's no facial recognition, there's no radar on these to grab people speeding or anything like that. They're really designed to capture license plates and share them with other agencies across the state that also capture license plates using these cameras, I believe. Where this would come into play would be if there's an Amber Alert and a license plate number goes out, those cameras are capturing plates and that'll pop up in the database, thereby making it easier for law enforcement to enact on something like that if it pops up in the system. If anybody has any questions, I believe Chief Fisher's here and there's also a representative from Flock here as well.
Any questions?
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I know that these are, Chief Fisher explained that these have been instrumental in helping find, in the one case it was a stolen vehicle with a child inside of it. I'm curious, are these also able to be used for like silver alerts, when missing elderly drivers, things like that? Okay.
Right, so with me, Sergeant Schonk from our place, he's actually used the system before, so he's got some first-hand knowledge of it, and Rick Lombardo with Flock Safety just invited him here to answer questions I may not be able to, but absolutely, I think for a silver alert, whether it's an Amber Alert, theft, any type of crime that you would have a plate vehicle description, you can put in that system and see where it's hit the camera. Flock is a little bit different than, for example, the system Orville uses. Many of us are familiar with that. The system Orville uses is a closed system, so only Orville has access to that data. Flock is a little bit different from them, and we did look at that system. Flock is a little bit different than them in that there's over 350 agencies in Ohio that have this system. And when you sign up, as long as you allow access, you have access to all those other cameras. So it's possible, you may have seen there was a couple weeks ago, an 8-year-old took a vehicle and drove it to Target. That's how they tracked her. They were able to follow her through those cameras of that vehicle passing. So same thing, if we would have an incident here, we could track it to Wadsworth, Medina, Lodi, Brunswick, all those entities have this same system. Right now, I think Rick said there's only one entity in Ohio that isn't sharing that data, but that's part of what makes this system different than that closed loop system. So,
How many cameras are we talking about? And it looks like 17.
Yep.
And I'm not asking you to disclose exact locations, but are these going to be on major highways?
Most of these cameras, we actually, listen, this is what Flock does every day, right? So we ask them, hey, look at our city, where do you think is the best placement of these? And there's a couple we might need to talk about. Part of it is because I think they might be outside city limits.
Probably shouldn't do that.
Right, but mainly, most of these, we're covering the access points of the city. Where are you coming in and where are you leaving the city of Worcester from? But again, that's kind of the start with this. If we get these up and running and we're having great success, then do we look to maybe get a couple downtown, some other spots? Now, the College of Worcester has some on Bell Avenue. I called them and said, hey, would you allow us access? That was several weeks ago. I don't have a response yet. But
I'm sure the mayor will take care of that.
there's also, you may have seen them, there's several of these cameras that Lowe's pays for outside of Lowe's at their entrances. So,
Okay, great, thank you.
Will Lowe's share? Or is that capability?
Yes, Lowe's does share after the fact. They don't allow police to
Real
do
time.
hot hit alerts that state a stolen vehicle alert, but they do allow sharing on the back end if they're looking for a vehicle. They do get access to all of those cameras.
And what about Walmart?
We do not work with Walmart right now.
Okay.
Does the college share those?
If we ask.
depends. Depends is the right answer.
I think that's
Sometimes
something we
they
should
do,
work on.
sometimes not so much.
I understand.
My only comment is it seems like a pretty good value for what we're gonna be getting. That's not a very, I thought they were gonna be considerably more costly.
Yeah.
I was very impressed that we're able to do this for as little cost as it is. And I fully recommend doing it. I think I mentioned to you, wish we'd have done it even before now, but yeah.
Listen, for me, this is the stepping off point. Let's get these up, let's see how they work, what kind of success we have, and then as we look in the future to add one here or there, you know, we think there's a deficiency, something like that, I think it's worth looking at. Part of the price difference with these, quite frankly, between the other system is that sharing, right? You're multiplying your ability to see throughout the state versus that closed loop system is a little less expensive, but you only get this little tiny snapshot, right?
Well, I think our citizens, once we've had them for a while, realize they're not getting traffic tickets because of them. Will understand that we really are not putting them in place for monitoring traffic laws. It's not what it's for, so.
Neither of us want those headaches, Mr. Meyer.
Exactly. So we'll prove that we're not doing that, and then we can expand it if we see that we can use it. So thank you for all the research and help that you guys have provided.
Any further questions? Okay, then,
Mr. Gaffney, motion?
I would motion that we, move forward with this legislation.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Gaffney, second by Mr. Meyer. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the adoption.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Warden?
Yes.
Ms. Knappich?
Yes,
Mr. Abernathy?
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey?
Yes.
Mr. Malta?
Yes.
All right, motion's approved. Thank you very much. Next item, ordinance 2024-25. Ms. Hamilton, please read it for us.
Ordinance number 2024-25, an ordinance amending the annual appropriation ordinance and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Abernathy, floor is yours.
All right, looks like we had budgeted for some healthcare costs, set aside a certain, or appropriated a certain amount. Looks like we may have had a little bit of a shortfall. Am I saying that right, Andre?
Yeah, I actually didn't budget properly, so I left out the 10% the employees pay.
Okay, so we gotta dig into the funds and.
Yeah, I mean, the money's, the cash is there, I just didn't put the correct appropriated amount, so the
In the
actual
budget.
money is there,
And
yeah, the
it
cash
doesn't
is
matter,
there, it just needs your authorization, or your appropriation.
All right,
I've done
so,
that two times now, last year, you probably don't remember, but that's the second time, but I figured it out, I went and mapped out the problem, I said, this isn't gonna happen again, and that's what happened.
I felt like I was having deja vu.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
So was I.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was looking at the budget, I'm like, it's gonna be short, there's no way.
So we can't chalk that up to old age?
so this does say full amount budgeted, so I'm just going to move to motion to adopt.
suspend the rules. You know,
Oh,
I thought that was
so
one.
you guys got this written
I thought that was
as
one
the
of the
three
rules to suspend that.
Ps? So,
Unless somebody filled out paperwork wrong.
Yeah,
That wouldn't have.
I'm sorry, I thought you said
Yeah,
that
it just
number
says-
3 and number 5.
And it just says full amount budgeted, that's what I'm going off of.
I don't know, somebody put a little X there. Mine are those little dark blocks.
I'm going off of what paperwork
No,
does.
I see, yeah.
I'll second that.
So we left it for
I'll second
reading
it.
as non-actual legislation.
All right, then I will motion to suspend the rules.
And I'll
All right.
second that.
All right. Mr. Abernathy, motions to suspend the rules, Ms. Knappich seconds. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the motion.
Mr. Abernathy,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey,
Yes.
Ms. Knappich,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Warden,
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Abernathy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll.
Mr. Abernathy,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey,
Yes.
Ms. Knappich,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And before we get into the next one, I guess I'll ask the question now, so we don't look like we're completely ill-prepared, since this one also says 3 readings. Assuming that's also the case?
The same, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Ms. Hamilton, when you're ready, please read it for us.
Ordinance number 2024-26, an ordinance amending the annual appropriation ordinance and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
All right, looks like we have an estimated amount of $50,000 to go towards a transportation manager to be reimbursed through a grant. So it looks like it's one of those, go hire them first, and then we'll give you the money. So, am I reading that right, Andre? That's what I thought, I didn't think I messed that one up, so.
It's a quarterly reimbursement, if members interested, the photo is reimbursed by the quarter, so
Okay.
3 months.
So, in order to get the money, we gotta go spend it first. So, anything you wanna add to that?
That's pretty much it.
Well, thank you for giving me some pretty easy ones tonight. So, any questions?
Joel?
Just to say, we will have Mr. Kevin White, who was hired for that position. He'll be here at the next council meeting to introduce everyone. The name's familiar. He's from Wooster and was here several years ago for working for the city of Green for a while, and now he's back.
Good deal.
But my only question, I know Mr. White, and he's a wonderful person, I'm glad to get him back to the city. He's a great young man, but I think $50,000 for the month of October is a little steep. The ordinance says that this is paying for the month of October, and I just think $50,000 a month is probably more than,
Somebody write that up a little wrong.
yeah.
Did it say for or in the month?
To pay the transportation manager in October. Anyway, I realize that's not what that meant.
Paying in October, not for October.
Just kidding, it just seemed like I thought, well, that's a lot.
How come I didn't apply for that job? If it's that much.
And if it's a quarter, then it's $200,000 a year.
I'm not an attorney, so I don't know how to read the.
Yeah, anyway, that wasn't a question. You can move on, Mr. Abernathy, I was just making a comment. And I'd like to welcome Mr. White back to Worcester.
All right, I'm going to motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Abernathy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the suspension of the rules.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey,
Yes.
Ms. Knappich,
Yes.
Ms. Warden,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes. Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Abernathy, second by Mr. Malta. Ms. Hamilton, if you'll call the roll on the.
Mr. Sanders, if I could just interject to address Mr. Meyer's
Sure.
point, and I know he was somewhat in jest,
Oh, yeah, I was joking.
but the point of clarification is that, this is a transfer of funds to an account that'll be used to pay him. And the $50,000 is that amount that's going to be transferred to that line item. But he has just started working last week, so that he will be paid out of that fund.
Right, because it's gonna get reimbursed by the grant. I know.
Exactly, but that's just a transfer of funds into a line item out of which his payment will come.
And in case he's watching tonight, we want to make sure he knows he's not getting paid $50,000
Correct.
for October.
I don't want anybody to be confused by that, including Mr. White.
Can I move this legislation along?
Well, at this point, I think we have a motion and a second. We're just waiting on Ms. Hamilton to call the roll.
I was
before-
waiting for my cue.
That's right, so there you go.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Gaffey,
Yes.
Ms. Knappich,
Yes.
Ms. Warden,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yeah.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
All right. Ordinance is adopted. Next resolution, 2024-80 will also be Mr. Abernathy. And with that, we'll have Ms. Hamilton read it to us first, please.
Resolution number 2024-80, a resolution authorizing the Director of Finance to issue payment for services rendered prior to the fiscal officer's certification of availability of funds and providing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Abernathy, the floor is yours.
All right, looks like we have 3 purchase orders we need to approve for Mr. Doherty here. So, Mr. Doherty, you wanna tell us what we're looking at here?
Yes, so occasionally, doesn't happen too often, but state law says that obviously if you're gonna purchase a good or service, it has to have a certification by the finance officer of the municipality that the money is available. And at that point, what we do is we encumber the funds and set them aside. So occasionally, sometimes it happens, like I think in one of these cases, there was a PO that was open, but it wasn't enough. It was like 800. We do what's called blanket POs, and I believe somebody was on vacation on that instance. Second one, or one of those as well, they had a couple POs open for the vendor, but it wasn't for that purpose. In other words, for a different purpose, and I don't recall I'm sorry, the third one was somebody was on vacation, the janitorial one. And the Willow Brick was, there was a couple POs open, but they didn't get the right one in there, and, so anyway, that happens occasionally, but not too often, and the nice thing about this is obviously it comes to council for your, approval. It's called a then and now is available then and is now, so, and that too helps us often get our excellence in reporting from the auditor state, and it gives another level of assurance that we will take these things seriously. We don't just ignore them. You know what I mean? It's a compliance law, but it shows that as well. So it's part of the control procedure we have in place. It shows that the control procedures are actually working. So.
And these are things that are audited,
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
need to make sure we're doing it right.
Yeah, I think, like I said, very frequently as it happens 1 to, 4 times a year, I think, or actually 0 to 4 times. But it's just unusual that it happened. It was boom 1, and then boom 2, and then remember Avery said, no, we got 1 more. So, anyway. But the money was available. It's just a procedural thing. In other words, somebody called up and said, hey, we need whatever this is. So they said, okay, hey, we need whatever this is. They ordered it, and they may have forgotten to get the PO in, or like I said, in one case, somebody was on vacation, didn't get the PO in until they were after the fact. But
Well, in the case of the 6-Mo, they do the building plan review, so at this point, I mean, I'm sure there's probably a PO written for them, and at that point, that dollar amount varies depending on how many of those
Yep.
the building department sends to them for plan review.
And that was the PO that the amount wasn't enough in the available PO. Exactly. Yep.
So,
And so in the grand scheme of things, 6-Mo was 5,700, Willow Brick was 3,877, and the janitorial was 3,484, so we're not talking huge POs here, so.
No, and I'd also say, there's normal, lawful purchasers of the city, it just didn't get entered appropriately, they're actually on time, and, that's part of the compliance law we have, so that people don't go out and spend money that's not there.
Okay. Any additional questions from council? All right, I'm going to motion to suspend rules. I'm reading it again, it says it's not budgeted.
Oh, it is.
no, this one says it is budgeted, and this one does say that we don't need to suspend the rules on this one.
Well, we're just whipping on
Hold on,
every single one right now, so,
hold on.
okay, we'll just go ahead and motion to adopt.
Second.
All right, motion to adopt, seconded by Ms. Knappich. Ms. Hamilton, you call the roll on the adoption, please.
Mr. Gaffey,
Yes.
Ms. Knappich,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Warden,
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes.
All right. So our last item of unfinished business this evening is, will be with Mr. Malta, but before that, we'll have Ms. Hamilton read it for us, please.
Resolution number 2024-81, a resolution authorizing the expenditure of additional funds for utility preventative maintenance and repair items for utility infrastructure and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Malta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Core and Main is a company similar to Granger Supply, which I think everybody knows that name. And this is, any necessary inventory as far as valves, plumbing, that type of supply house. They're gonna exceed the $50,000 limit, so that's why it's brought here tonight. I think we've talked about this in the past, moving these up to 75 because of inflation and what we're seeing. Sorry, my mic is not on. So that's where we're at. Cost of repairs and materials have increased, and it's necessary to maintain the inventory to keep the city, one, the water moving, and gotta go to the other side too, for sure. So that's why we're asking to pass this tonight.
Any questions?
Any questions? I talked to Mr. Fitz today for quite a while, so I told him I didn't think it was necessary for him to be here for this.
No. So just out of curiosity, I know we had great discussions last fall related to this topic. And so just out of curiosity, do you know how many times we've done this so far this year? Is this the 4th or 5th time that we've had to increase?
More than that.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, more than a dozen, I would say. I can get a list of them.
Yeah.
A dozen? Okay. But in any event, to the point, it's been a number of times, so at this point, yeah, it's just, again, going back to the discussion that we had, and I'll admit I was on the opposite side of that discussion, but to this point, clearly, this is gonna continue to happen, so. So with that, Mr. Malta, you have a motion for us?
I motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt, second by Mr. Abernathy. Ms. Hamilton, please call the roll on the adoption.
Mr. Gaffey,
Yes.
Mr. Abernathy,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Ms. Knappich,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
All right. We adopted resolution 2024-81. We will proceed into our miscellaneous section, which at this point we have 3 people that have signed up to speak. 2 roundabouts and 1 marijuana. And at this point, did we need a microphone on the podium?
We'll just turn ours on.
Okay. All right, so, all right, Mr. Barnett, if you want to start us off, please?
Thank you, Council. I'm back again, David Barnett, corner of Burbank. And, old man, concerned about the roundabout. I told you the 3 reasons before. Safety concern for pedestrians. Safety concern for our fire and EMS squad to get around this roundabout when traffic is stopped there. They have issues coming down by the college because it isn't wide enough. Third of all, it's gonna be total chaos at the beginning of school and at the end of school. It's gonna be worse than they ever thought about it being now. When I bought this house 3.5 years ago, people said, "You're crazy. It's too busy up there." I said, "They've got a traffic light. People let you in and out. They're gonna take away that traffic light. And they're gonna put that roundabout right in front of my driveway where I have to pull out. How would you like that in front of your house? How would you? You wouldn't. I said I wasn't gonna get mad, but I am mad. You know what you'll do to my property value, put this roundabout there, and nobody will be able to get in and out of that driveway of my home? it's gonna ruin that property value. And you know it as well as I do. Excuse my anger. I'm sorry about that. But you're ruining my dream. My dream home.
How far along in the process are we with this roundabout?
You had approved the contract for design, so we're in the middle of the design for the project. We've looked at it for quite a few years, due to the traffic that's been there, the backup and actually because of some of the safety issues with the traffic. So it's been on the books, and you've probably seen it on the 10-year plan for quite a few years now.
Have we funded it?
So the TIF, not specifically, but the TIF would pay for, this would be one of the TIF funded projects.
The project hasn't been approved either.
No, you just, all you
It's not
did
even-
was design, to go with the design, which will actually improve pedestrian safety, improve traffic flow. And it's not unusual for the geometry and the location of the roundabout in relation to a driveway. That's not unusual or uncommon in roundabout design. And fire trucks were actually used in the design criteria for these. That's what they're designed for. So
I don't think I've ever seen a roundabout back to a driveway. Or a roundabout on a driveway.
There's several driveways that are closer than I've ever seen to this, I mean, at least in Worcester.
And the other concern I have is just simply, some of the things that were brought up is and I'm sure I'll hit this in the design phase of things, but the safety of kids walking to and from school, the soccer players at the soccer fields, the bike riders and the runners. I'll be watching very closely to see what the design people do about that, because that's huge.
This is gonna be different from all the other roundabouts we've done
in that it's two back-to-back in a peanut shape, yes.
But the other roundabouts we've done haven't had this much residential on it, as far as like driveways.
For the city of Worcester, no, but in the state, if you've ever been anywhere around in the suburb of Columbus, they've got quite a bit more than we've got.
We're not Columbus though, and our residents are not used to something like that. So that, obviously you can see the shock on his face and his emotion on that. So I think we need to keep that in mind.
No, absolutely. I also know that this is always a challenge. You know, you wanna respond to the individual and be a good customer service representative. At the same time, we also have to look at, and we always do, at the community, the community steward piece and all the other 8,400 vehicles that drive through there every day. So one thing to look at if you're looking at pedestrian and bike is go over and look at the one on the other end at Oldman and Oak Hill, and you'll see how we incorporated the bike and sidewalks that through there, and how safe that is, and how that can function very well.
Can the buses
I've walked
get
out,
around
it's a
it?
little intense.
Yeah, that's why you see that slightly raised area in the middle.
So they drive on the curb?
Yeah,
So they can't get around it without driving on the curb?
No, not
So
necessarily.
bump
No,
up
when
on
you
the curb,
use-
bump off the
No, that's
curb?
not true. When you use the curb is when, in a case where if for some reason there were blockage of traffic or wasn't moving fast enough for a bus or for a fire truck, then you have that additional width that you can get through there and drive over. And if you notice, we actually had this issue with the Oldman and Oak Hill one in the wintertime, when there was just a little bit of snow. The curb is so low that people just drove sort of right over that at times. Visually you see it very easily when there's not snow covering it, but when there's a little bit of snow, you couldn't see it. It was pretty easy to drive. And if you looked at the tracks, people were sort of driving over that anyway.
Of course, with plowed snow, it'd probably been easier to see that curb.
And all those fire trucks can get around it without driving over it?
That we used fire truck, the largest truck we have as part of the design criteria for this one.
And the wheelbase of that truck's similar, if not identical, to the school bus.
Oh yeah, actually bigger than that,
I want to be very careful, because Mr. Burnett's not the only one I've heard from. I've heard from about 7 people up in that area who are opposed to the roundabouts. Now, I know what it's like to sit up there in traffic, and it is, the beginning of the day and the end of the day is wicked. It's terrible. But there are other times when it's like in soccer Saturday, it's a little impossible to get around. But when we go to the design, I want the design people to be very cognizant of taking as little, designing it so we take as little property as we have to from any residents, and that we make it safe for the pedestrians. And the last thing I want to see is that we put in a roundabout and people are watching and kids get hit by cars.
Right, I mean, these aren't new, you know, I mean, Ohio was sort of a late adopter, you know, in the grand scheme of things, but now I think we're number 10 in the country for total number of roundabouts. If you go to the Federal Highway Administration, they actually list roundabouts as a safety feature. Like if you're looking at how to make intersections safer, number one, look at doing a roundabout, both for vehicles and for pedestrians. So that's why we're doing this, is to make it safer, to improve the level of service. I looked at this probably 15 years ago to try, is there any way outside, this is before we had our first roundabout, how can we improve this intersection? The only way to do it was to align Winkler and Olden. And that would have required much more property to take either from the county or from residents, which that's why we never proceeded with that. So that's just not feasible for us to do that. And right now, ODOT has a roundabout first mentality. If there's an issue with an intersection, they say, we're not even gonna fund you unless you look at a roundabout first and show us that that can't be done before we'll even think about a signal.
Yeah, and I stress that to people because I get a lot of questions, as I'm sure we all do, of, why have we jumped on this roundabout bandwagon and that's all we wanna do now? We don't wanna put in signs or lights, and I always reassure them that if we want funding from outside the city, if we want state funding, if we want federal funding, that's the route we have to go.
Would it be possible for this to be done in less secret, behind the closed doors of the city and the planning, and shared with council and the public, the designs and things that are going into the planning, all these things that you're saying that you guys are considering?
We can share as we move forward during the design. Just like any other roadway project or signal project that we do, I mean, nothing.
Generally, you wait till it's done and then just put it to us and say, here it is, this is what we decided. So what I'm saying is maybe a little bit more input before that time comes.
Or you just let us know in the planning commission, so.
We'll definitely let you know, I mean, there's obviously a ton of design criteria that have to be adhered to, so.
Are there any models, like video models that could be shared with the city to kind of prove your case that this is going to be an improvement, that this is going to be safer, that this won't be a detriment to Mr. Barnett's property value? Is there anything like that that the design company might be able to provide?
I mean, I can't speak to the property value, to that piece, but the entire transportation industry has known for many years, this is, that's why FHWA has adopted it as I can send you.
And I understand the roundabout, Joel, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this particular unique property being, soccer fields, lots of kids running around, residential neighborhood, school neighborhood, very tight corners, large vehicles from our safety service center. Those are a lot of outside factors that we need to take into consideration. And so I'm just saying, I'm not saying I don't believe you that this won't be an improvement, and something needs to be done because it is a disaster what it is now. But maybe to give some peace of mind to the folks who do live up there and who do have these concerns, I'm just curious if there might be some sort of digital model that can kind of represent what would happen when school buses are going through there at the rate that we know that they will be, or if there's a 5-alarm fire and all the trucks have to go through. I mean, it wouldn't hurt, I don't think, to be able to present that.
Yeah, we'll provide as much information as we can. There's several FAQs in the rack out here if you want to be on the way out. It might be helpful in answering people. But yeah, we'll provide all that. We'll provide the design criteria, concepts as we're progressing through that. We always try to limit the impact on the adjacent properties as much as possible when it comes to right-of-way acquisition, as much as we can. We'll do that just like we always do.
Are they far enough along to where there's actually some preliminary type layout in terms of what they're proposing?
I'll have to double check. I mean, I've seen concepts, but I don't know that those were more than very, very preliminary, and I would like to see us have enough work done that I can give you some pretty, specific dimensions and things like that, which we should be pretty close to that.
I think I can answer a lot of these questions going on, and we do have one more resident here. I've spoke to, that's my ward, so I'm highly involved in that roundabout, and I live very close to it. So yes, safety-wise, I understand. I'm a motorcyclist, roundabouts are the safest thing for a motorcycle, beyond me. Doesn't matter, I'm not here, I'm here to serve the public. These residents are extremely upset. There were drawings sent out to all of them. I've seen them as well. They had markers in their yards, and we're gonna hear more and more. And I've encouraged the residents to come here and speak to us, tell us how they feel, what they need, how this is going to, how can we make it work? So that's why everybody's getting phone calls. I want that to happen. I think our interaction with our public is extremely important, and it's our job. So with that said, I would love for you to come on up here and speak a piece.
I live directly across the street from my neighbor who was just up here. Those flags are back in my yard about 40 feet. I have a flower garden in there, and I wish that you would all come up there and look at it before you're gonna tear it down. I have 8,000 tulips, thousands of other plants in there that are gonna be bulldozed over. My driveway is gonna be moved just at the exit of a roundabout. And if you don't think I'm gonna have problems getting in and out of my driveway, there's something wrong. The only thing that allows me to get out now is the red light. That's when I know I can get out. Cars are stopped. Cars are never gonna have to stop coming through a roundabout. I'm never gonna be able to get out safely. I'm only gonna be able to get in my driveway from one direction, going through the roundabout. I can't get in my driveway coming from my work. I can't come in from going to the store. I gotta go all the way through a peanut shell roundabout to get in my driveway that's gonna be facing this way as I'm coming this way to get in my driveway. If this harms one person, it shouldn't be done. It's harming every resident around that circle. Everybody's driveway either goes in or at an exit of this roundabout. I think it's harming people. I understand that something needs to be done with this intersection. My next door neighbor's property has about 5 beautiful trees that are gonna be completely gone. Roundabout is gonna be 20 feet out his living room window. I mean, I don't understand how you can do that kind of stuff to people. If you're harming one resident in Worcester, that's wrong. I love this town. I bought this house because of how beautiful it was and all the trees. I have 2 acres of land there, and I put thousands of dollars right where they're gonna bulldoze. Before you make that decision, please come out to my property and look at it. Look how beautiful it is. Because it ain't gonna be that way when you're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last person that signed up this evening is Carrie Snyder.
Good evening. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the thoughtful discussion that was happening earlier in the committee meeting, so it was good to kind of be a fly on the wall for that. Just a couple thoughts quickly. So bath salts were made illegal in 2011. I had to check on it because I wasn't sure myself. So if anywhere is currently selling them or possessing or selling at all is completely illegal in Ohio. So we can report them and send the police right out.
And in locations where children can get in.
No, I mean, they're illegal. It doesn't
I know,
matter
but
what
they're selling them, and it's where children can get in, as opposed to a dispensary.
My point is, if you find bath salts for sale anywhere, that we need to tell the police because they're illegal in Ohio since 2011. So,
And people
across
are still being harmed.
right, no, I agree.
It's
I
like
think
buying
bath salts
drugs on the
too.
street. They're illegal.
But bath salts, that shouldn't be an issue anymore. That, I mean, obviously, lots of illegal behavior still takes place. We can't stop that. But, so my point here, so the city does have to make a lot of decisions that limit legitimate freedoms. of others, and respectfully, I believe part of what makes your job really difficult is having to weigh those rights against the impact that it has on the rest of the community. So even my right to say not take care of my property or to have farm animals or something like that is regulated by the city. It doesn't mean it's still not a right, but it's just not a right that I can exercise, within city limits. So I do think it's within the city's rights to weigh in on the dispensary issue without worrying that we are infringing on other people's freedoms. But with that said, I do think that a 2 to 4 year moratorium is very reasonable. I have no complaint with that at all, and that if that's how council decides, I'm more than satisfied with that. So, but I appreciate you hearing my thoughts.
Thank you. To continue on miscellaneous, my only comment that I have is I had hoped to see our nice little plaque from the fair board up, but I see that it hasn't made it to the wall yet, so
Mr. Monet was on vacation. He's
I guess we're working on roundabouts, so no worries. All right, well, with that, Mr. Abernathy, any comments for us tonight?
Yeah, tough night when it comes to tripping all over myself and introducing legislation, so thank you for your patience on that. But powerful stuff from a couple of our residents when it comes to that roundabout, and it's very impactful, and I think that when the time comes that this comes before this council, we need to take this real serious. This is different from the other roundabouts. This is impacting people's homes. And I know you guys are really passionate about these roundabouts, but I have to really, really consider what this is gonna do to these people's homes. And this is not a slam dunk. So I just wanna put that out there on the record for myself. So with that, thank you for everybody who's spoken tonight, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Ms. Knappich?
I'd also like to reiterate, I'm interested in learning more about this. The roundabouts, because it is very, very different from any that we've put in before. And I just laugh because the only peanut-shaped roundabout I've ever seen, I think it's in Oberlin, and you can literally just still drive straight through, it's that flat. And one is on one side of the road and one is on the other, which is the total mess. So I'll be interested to see what the design patterns are. I want to thank everybody who came tonight, the citizens who spoke, people who came to the committee meeting. I think it was very productive. I want to congratulate the city and the chamber for doing a phenomenal job on Wooster Fest. The dog races were all over the internet because I was sending them to California and to Seattle, and they were like, it was just pretty funny. And then finally, on a not so happy note, I would like, and I'm sure everyone would like to send our condolences and our prayers out to the community in Norway, who had 5 of their student band members be in a horrific accident Saturday night. One young lady, 14 years old, did not make it, and she passed away. But I wore my Norway Bobcat sweatshirt tonight because I think that we need to keep the community. It's so hard to lose anyone in your community, but a 14-year-old child is just devastating for everyone. So our hearts go out to the community in Norway.
Thank you. Mr. Gaffey?
I just agree with the points made by Mr. Abernathy and Mr. Knappich regarding the roundabouts. I do think it's important to just really look at things from all sides and really consider the impact on the local residents. And as Ms. Knappich said, just really keeping Norwayne in our thoughts, and just really heart goes out to them as they're working through this tragedy, for sure.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Warden?
I don't really have anything useful to add. I just would reiterate everything that you've all said tonight. And I think it's very important that, at a time like this, that our community can pull together. So I hope that that's what we continue to do for these families. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malta?
Great conversation tonight. As always, I appreciate everybody coming, including the community more than anything. And based on my encouragement, we will have more discussions with the roundabouts. All residents will be here at some point to give their thoughts and opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Myers?
Thank you, President Sanders. Yeah, I'll be opposed. I can't imagine changing my mind and not being opposed to the roundabout. I wish the city administration would be a little less defensive and more open to discussing the fact that they might not be right about this and that there might be other ways to look at it. One of the issues that I saw, I was in a long line of traffic going north on Burbank, a bus coming up Winkler. If there's a long line of traffic that doesn't have to stop, I'm not sure how a bus enters coming north on Winkler to get around to get to the high school. So that might not even be possible. They might have to go around a different direction, because if there's no light, they're not gonna have to pause. So I'd like to, like you said, consider all the options that might be available, including, like to see, they talked about flags in people's yards. I'd like to know how much land is being taken potentially from the county side versus our homeowners. That would be something I think to consider, so. That's all I have, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for your comments. And Mr. Myers, do you have any?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, I apologize, I screwed you up on that, on my intro. I looked at those sheets and I had.
Well, yeah, I was saying more since time. I love to get this suspended rules and wait.
I know when I'm supposed to, one of them did say budget item, and I was like, what?
It did. Right.
So they're gonna wait till they have the final sign and then they're gonna.
We had that extra week off, which just threw me off.
Not your game, right?
It's your fault, Ron.
I know.
Too much of it, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'll have to go up there and look at the
I
flags.
would think of that temperature.
See you in a couple weeks.
Yep, see ya.
There's only so many
I mean, I
pieces
just.
of material you can take off.
I mean, from the beginning, I scratched my head.
Have a good night. See you tomorrow.
But that is. So, I have.